I walked into the family reunion after 20 years of silence, and my cousin Ashley spotted me first. "Oh my God, you actually showed your face here?" The room went silent. Whispers rippled through the crowd like a wave. My Aunt Carol muttered loud enough for everyone to hear. After what she did? Unbelievable. I stayed calm, clutching a leather folder in my hand. They thought I came back to apologize. They had no idea what was inside. My name is Sophia. I'm 42 years old. I grew up in a tight-knit family, the kind where everything was about reputation, who you married, what you drove, what people said about you at church. I was the sensible one, the quiet one. I worked at the family accounting firm, kept my head down, did what I was told. 20 years ago, I was accused of embezzling $40,000 from the family business. My older brother Dylan blamed me publicly. My parents believed him without question. I was shamed at a family dinner in front of everyone, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, and told to leave and never come back until you make this right. I left that night with one suitcase and no goodbye. I spent 2 decades rebuilding, worked my way through night school, became a licensed auditor, started a quiet life in another state. I never married, kept to myself. But I always carried one thing with me, the truth. If you've ever been blamed for something you didn't do, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I see every single one. I kept silent all these years because I had no proof. Until 6 months ago, I got an invitation to the family reunion via Facebook from a younger cousin named Lily. She didn't know the history. She didn't know who I was to this family, and I decided it was time to go back. Not for them, for myself. Let me take you back to the night everything fell apart. I was 22 years old, working as a junior accountant in my family's small construction business. My father ran it. Dylan was being groomed to take over. One afternoon, my father called an emergency family meeting at the house. The whole family gathered around the dining room table. Parents, Dylan, aunts, uncles, my grandparents. My father stood at the head of the table, red-faced and shaking, holding a bank statement in his hand. Someone stole $40,000 from the business account. My stomach dropped. I handled some of the books, but I had nothing to do with transfers. I didn't even have access to that account. Dylan jumped in immediately. "Dad, I hate to say this, but Sophia's the only one with access besides you." I froze. "What?" "No, I never touched that account." My mother's voice was ice cold. "Sophia, if you needed money, you should have asked." I tried to explain. I didn't even have the password for transfers. But no one was listening. Dylan pulled out printed email records, allegedly showing I'd requested access 2 weeks prior. The emails looked real. My name was on them. My father's voice broke. "I'm so disappointed in you." My grandmother started crying. My uncle called me a disgrace. Dylan, playing the concerned brother, leaned forward. "Maybe she has a problem. Gambling? Debt?" I had neither. I lived at home. I barely spent anything. I looked around the table. No one met my eyes. My father stood up. "You're no longer welcome in this business, or this family, not until you pay back every cent and apologize." I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I just stood up and left. I packed a bag that night and drove 6 hours to a friend's couch in another city. No one called. No one checked on me. But Dylan hugged me on the way out. He leaned close and whispered in my ear, "You should have stayed out of my way." For the first 5 years, I heard nothing from my family. I changed my phone number, but I kept one old email active, just in case. I saw social media posts from distant cousins, family holidays, birthdays, weddings. Dylan got married. I wasn't invited. My father retired and handed the business to Dylan. No mention of me. I worked 2 jobs, went to community college at night, paid off debt I didn't even owe. 8 years after I left, my mother passed away from cancer. I found out 3 weeks later through an old coworker. I drove back for the funeral, sat in the back of the church, quiet as a ghost. During the eulogy, my father stood at the podium and listed his children. Our son Dylan, who gave her so much pride. He didn't say my name. After the service, I approached him at the cemetery. He glanced at me, blank-faced. "You shouldn't be here." Dylan stepped between us. "Dad doesn't need this today. Just go." I left, and I vowed never to return. Over the years, I slowly learned the family narrative had changed. Through a cousin's slip on social media, I saw a post about the sister who abandoned the family after stealing. They'd rewritten history. I wasn't just blamed. I was erased and villainized. Younger cousins didn't even know the full story. They just knew Sophia was the bad one. Dylan's reputation grew. He expanded the business, became the favorite son. I, meanwhile, became a successful independent auditor, working with small businesses across 2 states. I lived simply, never flaunted success, kept a low profile, but the anger never fully left. 6 months ago, I got a message request on Facebook from Lily, a 19-year-old cousin I'd never met. "Hi, Sophia. We're planning a big family reunion for Grandpa's 90th. Everyone's invited, even people we haven't seen in forever. Would love if you came." Lily had no idea who I really was to the family. I stared at that message for days. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I started digging. I'd kept one thing from that night 20 years ago. A printed copy of the fake email Dylan used to frame me. I'd always known something was off. I never requested that account access. But back then, I had no skills, no resources, no way to prove it. Now, as a licensed auditor with forensic accounting experience, I had tools. I reached out to an old contact, a cybersecurity consultant named Raj I'd worked with on fraud cases. I sent him the scanned email and asked, "Can you tell me if this was faked?" Raj ran metadata analysis on the original file. 2 weeks later, he called me back. "Sophia, this email was backdated. The metadata shows it was created the same day it was discovered, not 2 weeks earlier like the timestamp says." He sent me a full report. Timestamps, IP logs, everything. But I wanted more. I contacted the bank that had handled my family's business account back then. After weeks of paperwork and legal requests, I got archived records. Buried in them was a wire transfer authorization signed by Dylan, moving $40,000 to an account under a shell LLC. The account had been closed years ago, but the trail was there. What they didn't know was this. I'd spent the last 3 months quietly building a case file. I wasn't coming back to beg. I was coming back to bury the lie. I didn't tell anyone I was coming, except Lily, who thought I was just excited to reconnect. The reunion was held at a rented community hall in our hometown. I drove alone, arrived mid-afternoon wearing simple jeans and a blazer. I carried the leather folder with printed documents inside. Walking in felt surreal. Same people, older faces, same judgmental energy. Lily greeted me warmly, confused by the cold stares from others. My father, now 91, sat in a wheelchair at the center of the room. Dylan stood beside him. Dylan saw me first. His face went pale, then hardened. He walked over slowly. "What are you doing here?" I stayed calm. "I was invited." His voice dropped low. "You've got a lot of nerve. Don't cause a scene." I didn't respond, just walked past him. My Aunt Carol intercepted me by the buffet table. "I don't know why you'd show up after all this time. You broke your father's heart." I just nodded. Didn't argue. I noticed people whispering, phones out, tension rising, but I also noticed something else. Lily was watching, confused. Later, she approached me quietly. Sophia, what happened back then? No one actually talks about it. I looked at her. You'll find out soon. Dylan grew more agitated as the afternoon went on, pacing near the door, checking his phone. He pulled our father aside, whispering urgently. I sat at a corner table, folder unopened in front of me, waiting. Finally, Dylan's wife Jenna stood up and loudly announced to the room, "Before we do the toast, I just want to say how grateful we are for Dylan keeping this family strong, especially after difficult times." It was a pointed jab. Everyone knew. That's when I stood up. I walked to the front of the room, folder in hand. The room fell silent. Dylan stood up fast. Sophia, don't... I cut him off, voice steady. I'm not here to apologize. I'm here to tell the truth. My father stared at me, confused and frail. I addressed the room. 20 years ago, I was accused of stealing $40,000 from the family business. I didn't take it, but I was blamed, shamed, and erased. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Dylan's voice was louder now. We all know what happened. Don't rewrite history. I opened the folder, pulled out the first document. This is the email you used to frame me, Dylan. You claimed I requested account access 2 weeks before the money disappeared. I held it up. I had it analyzed by a forensic tech. The metadata proves it was backdated, created the same day you found it. I passed copies to the nearest table. People leaned in, reading. Dylan's face flushed red. That's ridiculous. You're making this up. I pulled the second document. Bank records. This is a wire transfer authorization. Your signature, Dylan. Transferring $40,000 to an LLC you created under a fake name. I walked toward him, voice ice cold. You stole from Dad. You framed me. And you let this family destroy me to cover your own ass. Gasps erupted. My father's face crumpled in confusion. Dylan stammered. No, those records are old. They don't mean... I didn't let up. I have the full forensic report, IP addresses, bank statements, everything. I turned to my father. Dad, I didn't steal from you. I never did. I left because no one believed me, and I stayed gone because no one cared enough to ask. My father's voice shook. Dylan, is this true? Dylan, cornered, tried to deflect. She's been gone 20 years. Why now? This is just revenge. Aunt Carol, reading the documents, looked up in horror. Oh my God. Lily, standing near me, stared at Dylan. You lied to all of us? Dylan's wife, Jenna, grabbed his arm, stunned. I placed the folder on the table in front of my father. I didn't come here for your apology. I came here so you'd know the truth. What you do with it is up to you. I turned and walked toward the door. Behind me, chaos. Voices rising. Dylan shouting. My father silent and broken. I walked out into the parking lot, hands shaking but head high. I sat in my car for a moment, exhaling 20 years of weight. My phone buzzed. Text from Lily. I'm so sorry, I had no idea. Another text from Aunt Carol. We owe you more than words. I didn't reply. Not yet. I drove home that night, 6 hours back to my quiet apartment, my quiet life. A week later, my father called. First time in 2 decades. His voice was frail, apologetic, broken. I listened, didn't forgive, didn't refuse, just listened. Dylan, I heard through Lily, had been confronted by the whole family. Some wanted him to pay me back. Others just wanted distance. The business reputation took a hit. Dylan stepped down from leadership. I didn't feel victorious. I felt free. I didn't need their approval anymore. Didn't need their apology. I'd built a life without them, and it was enough. For 20 years, their silence haunted me. Now it was theirs to carry. And I finally walked away, lighter than I'd ever been. If you've ever been blamed for something you didn't do, or felt erased by the people who should have protected you, hit that subscribe button. You're not alone. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? Have you ever had to prove your innocence to people who didn't deserve it? Your story matters. Share it below. I read every comment. And if this story hit home, send it to someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes the truth takes time, but it always finds its way out.